Deb, thank you so much for being here. All my friends from around the world, oh my God, they're all corners here. This is amazing. I'm really glad you're here. We have a really wonderful opportunity here tonight. It started with this interesting times that we're living in now. I've been doing the local PowerTeam meetups for the last 15 years, and I'm really proud of that. But they've all of a sudden become virtual meetings now in the last 2 months because of these interesting times we're living in. And so because of our training, what we do is we look for opportunity, right? So I actually had a local speaker booked, and I'm still going to bring her in when we get back to meeting locally. But I thought in order to celebrate our anniversary, which is really amazing, I also wanted to bring in one of the very best speakers I know, my mentor, one of my just dearest friends. I wouldn't even be a coach if it wasn't for her. I don't know if that's entirely true, but she actually was a huge inspiration. I've learned so much from her. I use what I learn all the time. You all benefit from it. And you're going to get a chance to learn from her directly tonight. So my dear friend Deb Battersby is a master trainer with the RRI organization, Roberts Research International. She is just a light. She's incredible. And she works with realtors, she works with entrepreneurs, she works with people all over the globe.
Hey, did you hear the thunder in the background?
I didn't. Is that in Chicago?
No, it's thundering here, and I'm thinking maybe the angels are saying, okay, tone it down a little bit, Dave. Okay.
Oh, is that it? No, God is echoing what I'm saying is what's happening.
Oh, I see.
He's agreeing with me. So anyway, I could go on for quite a while, but I won't. Deb, please say hello to everyone and feel free to fill in any blanks that I've left them. I'm just really honored that you came on tonight and you're going to get a chance to share some of the beautiful things that you've blessed my life with. So would you care to say hi, please?
I would love to. And first of all, again, thank you for this opportunity. And it's pretty cool that so many of the names that are flashing across the screen, that I have had the privilege of, meeting and knowing so many of you, which is an amazing blessing. Sometimes I think we forget how broad our network is and how many amazing people we've connected with around the globe. That it's kind of wonderful to be reminded of that right now. And, I'm not going to talk about myself. If you have questions of me during this interview and at the end of the program, I will answer any question that you want to pose.
So why don't we jump in then? Is that okay?
Please.
So let's kind of step back for a minute. Like, I know you've got some great content and I've already shared it. If you haven't already downloaded your free handout tonight, there is a link over in the chat box. If you just hit that link, it'll take you directly to it. You can download it. It's a 5-page PDF. So you can follow along with us. There's some excellent content just specifically for you all. But Deb, in developing the conversation that we were going to have tonight, we kind of started with some basic ideas about how we can bring value in these unprecedented, interesting times that we're living in. So talk a little bit about this idea that we started with, like just going home. Like, why is that such an important foundational metaphor that you wanted to share, especially at this time right here?
Well, it's interesting in that, first of all, most of us have been directed to go home, and to stay home for a while and to operate from home as much as we possibly can. And it reminds me of something, and I'll share with you. I had an amazing experience in January, and it was quite a spiritual journey in a number of ways. If you want to ask me more about that later, I'm happy to share some things with you. But one of the messages that came to me, during the various ceremonies, was that all we can ever do for each other is offer safe passage home. And the literal, that's literal words, safe passage home. And through my experiences, I was really trying to figure out, what exactly does that mean? And the insights that came with that were something around, coming home to who you are, coming home to the essence of you. stripping away all of the things that other people are, have labeled you as or tried to fit you into, or places where you feel like you've had to become something maybe that you're not in order to fit in. Sometimes we do that to the point where we forget who are we, what is the essence of who we are. And the message was so powerful for me because it kept reverberating throughout my thoughts, was that when we come home to who we are, this is where our real power lies. This is where we are uncompromised. This is where we are fully expressed. This is where we get to be that thing that we talk about all the time called authentic. This is where we just get to be, comfortably be, naturally be, without trying to prove something or be something or do something or become something. So it seemed like the world has been asked to go home.
And when you talk about safe passage home, you maybe covered it, but are there anything like safe from what specifically? I mean, I know you kind of talked about it, but like, what are some of the things that get in the way of us finding that
Safe
clarity within?
I thank you for asking that, Dave. Safe passage home just means passage without judgment.
Wow.
Safe passage is about coming home to who you are without fear, without trepidation, without the just myriad labels that we put all over ourselves as unworthy or inadequate or undeserving or not smart enough or not pretty enough or not fast enough or not athletic enough or not thin enough or not tall enough or not short enough, or whatever labels we put on ourselves. So it's safe passage without all of that baggage. Safe passage with no heavy constraints, no judgments about what we should be, who we should be, how we should show up. But safe passage to just go through, to return to ourselves. And by the way, that really means without expectation being imposed on you. You see, most of the things that we fear are based on expectations that we put upon ourselves or that other people put upon us at various stages of our life. And in those, and not fulfilling those expectations, is where we began to erode our sense of self, our belief in self.
Yeah, that's so interesting you say that, because I think, you know, it was, you were saying so much about our own expectation, and then the other ones that other people put on us too, that can be just quite an amazing burden. And to see that, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, and the thing is, we take on those burdens in an effort to, to be loved. What do we know? We know that one of our greatest fears as human beings is that we won't be loved. And so early on, we learn that when we don't fulfill someone else's expectations, that somehow or other they withdraw something. They might withdraw attention, they might withdraw approval, they might withdraw time, but they withdraw something. And so we are early on conditioned that somehow or other we have to win that back. We have to gain that approval. And so as we begin to strive to recapture what we sense we lost, or what we feel we never had, we start to move away from who we are, because all we're doing is looking for, what do they need me to be? What does this person need me to be? What does my mom need me to be? What does my dad need to be? What do my siblings need me to be? What do my friends want me to be? What do my teachers expect me to be? So we start deviating from the essence of who we are, to the point where sometimes we do get lost. We feel like we're so far removed from who we are. We think we know who we are, but the reality is we're more certain of what we do and what role we play than of who we are.
Right. I'm so glad you kind of went into that, and it brings us to like this idea of, you know, to understand and access all of this information and filter out what we take from others and what we tell ourselves. Um, the idea of courage is a really important aspect of it, and I know you had some unique and interesting ideas about that word. So why don't you talk about the idea of courage?
This was also one of my insights or epiphanies in my experience in January, was that coming home is about coming back to your core, coming back to the core essence of who you were designed to be. And the kind of the message that came through was that you're always being called home. There is a part of you that is always calling you back to your truth. And the the distinction was that call is always being broadcast. It never stops. It is never ever withdrawn, and it is never denied. You and I have the opportunity to pay attention to those calls and decide whether we want to heed them or not. So when I say offer safe passage home, it can only be offered. It cannot be mandated. No one can tell you what to do. You must choose for yourself. And that's, kind of part of all of it. But coming to your core, my experience was that in this meditation or hallucination, whatever you want to call it, that I felt like parts of my core were being literally drawn back together, stitched back together, pulled together. And the message through that whole imagery was, come back to your core, strengthen your core. And we know, most of us are graduates of, of Tony Robbins' work. And Tony tells us that physiology is the first thing that we get to, or that is the first thing that we can change in order to change our emotional experience, in order to change what we're focusing on. And it occurred to me is that oftentimes we talk about building core strength. That core strength is critical to good posture. Core strength is critical to the well-being of your internal organs. Core strength is critical to your flexibility and movement. And so the message started stitching things together in ways that I had never thought of before. That part of building your core strength is not just physically coming home to your core, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, coming back to your core. And the next epiphany that came after that is that's where courage comes from. And courage is the essence of the word courage. That courage does not come from the mind. It doesn't come from the heart. It comes from the essence of who you are. When you are in your core, you have the courage to do whatever is required to fulfill your mission, your purpose here on earth.
And I love that you said that too. In the Robbins world, we always talk about, make your move, make your move, make your move, because it all starts with physiology first. If you're gonna, step into courage and step up to something that's maybe a little bit intimidating or a little bit unnerving in some way, you make your move. And it's like just before we walk across fire, like we find and access these new empowering possibilities within us, because we just shift our physiology. So that's really kind of what you're talking about, going home, getting this clarity and using the courage to go back and remember who you are, and then blast across whatever it is that's between you and what you want.
I think part of it too is that when you're fearful, go to your core.
Mm.
When you're fearful and you don't know what to do, when you're feeling that something is daunting or overwhelming or challenging, go to your core. And what I mean by that is connect with your core, engage your core, engage that part of your physiology and notice what happens to your confidence. Engage that part of you, because that is where the essence of who you are is. It's your power center. I guess in the yogic traditions and whatnot, we talk about the chakras. The solar plexus is your power center. It's your core. And so being strong in your core, to me, means being connected to your values. And your values, what's important to you, what's meaningful to you, is what is part of your essence. Those are things you have chosen because they mean something to you. They resonate with you. They respond to the essence of who you are, or the essence of who you are more accurately responds to them. So I hope that kind of opens your curiosity, but also gives you an opportunity to explore this for yourself, challenge this. By the way, anything that I share with you today, understand that this is a personal perspective. That's all it is. You get to challenge whatever you want to. You get to, and by the way, I've shared with Dave before that two of my highest values are defiance and irreverence. And I'll tell you what that means to me. Defiance means, number one, to be able to defy any limit that someone else imposes upon you. Irreverence, to me, just means that nothing is so sacred that it cannot be challenged. So I ask you to please, whatever you feel like you want to embrace or adopt, challenge it. See if it really applies to you. Does it work for you? Is it part of aligning with your essence? So challenge everything.
Yeah.
It's fun.
That's a great way to look at it too. And I think also another one of the really interesting aspects of this time, this unprecedented times, strange times, things that we've never experienced in our lifetime before. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's interesting. It's like it's sort of a metaphor for, it's like fear is spread virally from one person to another. One person says, "This is unnerving. This is scary. I don't know if we can do this. I don't know what this is going to look like." And it's like literally a mini personal pandemic. It spreads from one person to another. I'm scared. Well, you're scared. I'm scared. And then people start to pile on. So just talk about that idea too, about why the answer is really going back inside.
It totally is. And, Dave, one of the things you and I talked about, this is a time to develop immunity, emotional immunity, because there's not only COVID virus going around, which is influenza. There's another virus that I think is even more insidious and probably more dangerous, and that's what I call influenza, that you are influenced by everybody else's emotional take on things. You're influenced by the dramatization of every negative fact the media can get their hands on. We're influenced by these things, and they erode our sense of certainty, our sense of faith, our sense of confidence. And so this influenza, we actually have the antidote to that. We don't have to wait for the scientists to come up with it. We know the antidote to this. And that is to, number one, to take charge of your physiology, your focus, and your language. We know that, our community especially has been, exposed to this kind of insight for some time, that how you hold your body determines how you feel. You know exactly how to go into depression. You know exactly how to go into confidence. You know how to do it. Your nervous system knows how to do it. All you have to do is call it. You know how to shift your focus from what's not working to what is working. You know how to shift your focus from lack to abundance. You know how to shift your focus to what's wrong to what's right. And this is all about deciding that you are going to be in control of what you let influence you. And by the way, the most powerful person in your life to influence you is you. And you get to decide who else gets to have input. And sometimes we just sit back and just let it fall on us. Let it, seep into our awareness and our focus, when we don't have to do that. Now, I have it's kind of like, I think it was Jim Rohn who said, stand guard at the gateway to your mind. Yeah. You always have to be on guard, because if something slips in there that makes you feel uncomfortable, challenge it. Don't just accept it. Right. That's where we get to take charge of our emotional fuel. There's something else, Dave, that you and I have talked about, and has a lot to do with how you and I first met in terms of doing what I used to refer to as the matrix work. Yeah. And so do you want to, add anything to that, Dave, or ask questions about that?
I do, actually. I haven't thought about that. One of I think the best things that I've learned from you, and there have been many, and I think it kind of sets up about where we are now and where we're going to, this idea about emotion. So when you're talking about, like, all of a sudden, you listen to someone else and you're influenced, and you go into fear, or you go into doubt, or you go into uncertainty, or you go into, oh, there's no way I could do that. I don't know what this is going to look like. Talk to them about the gift of emotions and what actually those are, because I think when you understand those emotions in a different way, I think it's really transformational, and it puts you, rather than at the effect of fear, insecurity, whatever it is, how you can get back to cause. Talk to them a little bit about that idea. It's a game changer.
This is my favorite subject on the planet, so if I get too carried away, stop me. I believe that there is no such thing as negative emotion. I believe that true emotional intelligence is understanding, or I should say advanced emotional intelligence is understanding that all emotion is intelligent. I truly believe that our emotional system is a communication system. It's a communication system that taps in, that gives us information about what's going on around us, whether we are cognizant of it or not. I also believe that emotion is a universal language. We all speak it, we all understand it, we all process it and experience it, actually neurologically and physiologically the same. And from that standpoint, I figured, okay, if it's a communication system, and every other system in the body is so perfect that scientifically we haven't been able to improve upon it. We can support it, we can mend it, we can nourish it, but improve upon it? I don't think so. The skeletal system, the vascular system, the nervous system, the endocrine system, the digestive system, you name it. Those systems are profoundly complex and virtually flawless, if not injured or compromised in some way. So I figured, well, if that's true, is it possible that the emotional system is as flawless? If it is, then why would a system do anything destructive? So you see, my mind is kind of crazy. It asks very weird questions.
So for instance, anger is not necessarily a destructive emotion to be
No,
feared or
no,
concerned about.
no, it's not. Actually, all emotion has an intention, all of it. And I'll tell you what, I've been doing research on this and have done thousands upon thousands of sessions in the last 20 years. And I have never come across an emotion that is intended to do harm, ever. Not ever.
Whoa.
The reality is that most of the time, because we judge our emotions and we deny them and repress them, is that when they get to the point where we can't contain them anymore, they can be explosive. And so the reaction is an overreaction. So if I could give you an example, if fear shows up, it is very rare that fear is intended to stop you. Very rare. Fear can be, but it is always a warning signal, always, of some kind. It's a warning signal that says you're going into something you're not prepared for. Or it's a warning signal that you're going to attempt something that you don't know anything about. It could be a signal that you're stepping into an environment that you haven't scoped out before. So you don't know what's around the next corner.
Right.
So fear usually means something like get prepared, get your wits about you, pay attention, get focused, recognize what your resources are. Oftentimes fear will say, okay, it's time to pluck up your courage. It's time for you to grab a hold of that confidence. Fear rarely says stop unless it is such a life-threatening next step. Like if the next step is you're over the cliff, then fear will definitely say stop. Any time before that, it usually says beware. It usually says be cautious. It usually says gather your resources. Does that make sense? And so, if we look at, feelings of fear or anxiety or anything like that, then the way we manage that in a way that's resourceful and helpful is to sit with it for a moment and just ask the question. And I mean, really ask the question, why are you here? And it's like you're recognizing this energetic presence in your body. And the question is, why are you here? What is it that you want for me? What is it that you want me to do? Because emotion is designed to, just to say, I remember, I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was, this is kind of silly and I'll tell it, you'll laugh. Anybody here ever played with angel cards where you pull a card or somebody has you pull a card? And okay, I'm sure you've all seen them if you haven't done it. And I love cards like that. So I'm sitting with my sisters around the table and my sister draws a card and her card is the Angel of Miracles. And in the deck, there's only really 6 angel cards in this particular deck. And it's the Angel of Miracles. And I felt this pang of jealousy. I thought, what the hell? How silly is that? And I just sat with it for a moment and I thought, what's that all about? Why are you here? And the voice in my head, because there's always this voice in my head that talks to me, which is, and I hope you all have one of those too. If not, we'll have to discuss that later. But this voice came very reassuringly that said, it's all right, honey. I'm just trying to show you that you would like that too. So jealousy in its intention is to show you what is out there that you also would like to experience or to have.
Right. Wow. And I wrote about this in my book too. And it basically, again, it came from you. It's like essentially it's understanding that every emotion is essentially like a messenger. You know, if FedEx comes to the door, are you going to get in a fist fight with the guy that's dropping off the package, or are you just going to sign for it and say thank you? And take the package that was delivered to you with a good reason and just figure out like what was the purpose? What's inside the package? What's the gift here? So yeah, I love the way you get that. And like, so as another example, like what about anger? What is sometimes the message in anger?
Let me give you one that's even more intense than this, because this is not, remember I said you have to challenge everything. So
Yeah.
when I first started this premise, I thought, well, it looks like it's true, but is it really true? And then I had a client come to me that was dealing with as she described it, was hatred, intense hatred,
Oh,
intense hatred for her mother-in-law, intense hatred. And I sat with that for a moment and thought, what could be good about that? What could be a positive intention in that emotion? How could that possibly serve a higher good? And as we went through this, the process that I call the freedom point, and as we go into the process of really communicating with the emotion, what's its real intention, what's the upside that it intended for this person, and what's the downside that maybe didn't get, that was never planned for, but has now created some complications. So I found that hatred is the most powerful defense that you can launch. You know, like in sports, particularly in American football, the reference is the best defense is a strong offense.
right.
Hatred is the strongest offense you can mount. It says, if I hate you enough, if I push you away enough, if I almost dehumanize you, you can't touch me, you can't hurt me, you can't influence me, you can't affect me. And this is how, and I hate to say this, but this is what we've done with hatred around the world. Hatred of one culture for another, one religion for another, one tribe for another. That this is how we justify hatred. That if I vilify you enough, you can't hurt me. And this, I'll tell you, that gives me chills, because it wasn't an insight that I expected, but I have challenged probably over 1,000 emotions through this process with thousands of people. And always, your emotional system, your emotional communication is always first and foremost intended for your highest good.
Right.
Even things like depression, even things like anxiety, it's trying to tell you that what you're doing isn't working. It's trying to tell you that the path you've taken, or the little cage you've locked yourself in, isn't nurturing who you are, and that there's so many other bits of information that go with that. So, and I know this opens a big can of worms in terms of a lot of questions that people have, and I certainly hope I have the opportunity to share a lot more insight with you around that. I actually do have a program for coaches and therapists and individuals who want to learn, how do you actually work with the emotional system to create real transformation. So, perhaps we'll have a chance to talk about that a little bit later.
That sounds great. And I know you've got some great content for us tonight. I think the other purpose of that too, like in the example you gave, like, either hatred or anger too, it's also usually a signal that some important value has been violated.
Absolutely.
And so when you get that, you start to drill down, you can figure out what exactly is happening to take me to this possibly non-resourceful place, but in your case, what you're saying is it's actually a very resourceful place. It means,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I actually love anger, but there's a problem with there's a problem with the success of certain emotions. And for example, anger is really usually tied to the fact that you are disappointed in yourself, that you didn't stand up for what you believed in. You didn't confront something that needed to be confronted. You let someone get away with a violation of your values that was not okay with you. And you said nothing, you did nothing. So anger, mounts. And so as you stack those insults, and they, at some point, the system just has to react. It has to react. But it always begins kind of, well, depending on who it's direct, who do you feel is at risk? I know many of you are on this call are parents. And I know for me personally, as a parent, all you have to do is threaten my kids, and you will see anger like you have never seen before. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. There's someone in your life that is so special to you that defending them and their well-being is paramount, even more important than your own safety and well-being. So anger can serve many beautiful roles.
yeah,
And here's the problem that happens when people use rage and anger to control other people. You see, the beautiful thing about the emotional system is it finds resourceful ways for you to deal with life. That's what it's here to do. And sometimes you develop an overly protective strategy that you continue to use throughout your life because it was what you needed when you were 5. That you were maybe in an environment where it was a little bit threatening to be seen, where there was some danger of exposure or threat. So you learned how to become invisible. You learned how to fly under the radar. Now you're 40 and you're trying to get a promotion at work, or you're trying to launch your business, and you're still running the pattern of invisibility. You're still running the pattern of flying under the radar. Because the beautiful thing about the subconscious is it locks in every shortcut that works. The challenge with the subconscious is it locks in every shortcut that works, even when it no longer serves you. I know a lot of people, well, at least a handful of people, where anger and rage are their go-to because it works. When they get angry, when they get rageful, people clear the deck, people back off, people stop challenging them. They feel like they're in control or in charge. So they probably threw a tantrum or had an explosion when they were young, and it worked. It got them out of a very dangerous situation. The subconscious goes, I'm keeping that one. That works. So anytime threat shows up, anger may become that first go-to.
yep,
And part of the work that we do in Freedom Point is to actually identify what's the upside of all of these emotional patterns, and what's the downside, because the subconscious will gladly do anything that amplifies the upside and mitigates the downside. But it's a negotiation that actually you facilitate.
right.
It's pretty cool how it happens.
Yeah, and what's the cost of making that your go-to? If it's effective in one context and you go back to that well too often, what's going to happen? What promotions are you not going to get? What relationship is not going to continue to go in a great direction?
Absolutely.
There's a cost. Benefits, cost benefit analysis.
And that is true of almost every pattern we run.
Yeah,
And the thing is that no pattern poses any threat until the downside exceeds the upside.
wow, that's good. I love it.
Thank you. I've
Yeah,
learned a lot. I've learned a lot in the last 20 years. But I'm an explorer. I like to find out what's going on underneath everything else.
right. Well, let's move into our 4 Thrive formula that you developed just for this conversation tonight. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. We've got 4 T's that you have developed.
Yes. And, I was really thinking about that because number one, all of you have invested time to join us on this call, and I want to make sure that you are served to the highest level possible. So I really wanted to think about, where are you at? What are the things that you're dealing with that, the whole world is dealing with? And how could we kind of put them in a framework that would give us some resources to think about, to action, to move forward with. And so, and I hope that you've had a chance to download the PDF, but if not.
And for those who haven't, it's the first link on the chat. If you go to the chat box, there's a link you could go to and you can download it immediately. It's PDF, 5 pages. So sorry.
Okay. And by the way, I did notice that a couple of questions came up in the chat box, but I can't see what they are. So I promise you that before we get to the end of the program, that we will in fact, address whatever questions you have. So keep those questions and I will do whatever I can to make sure they're answered. So if we're ready to move into Thrive.
Yes, I'm just going to copy that and put it up there again.
Okay, and at any rate, so why did we come up with the Thrive formula?
Yeah.
Well, because obviously what we all want to do, and I know who you are. I know that we're kindred spirits. We have walked the same path for so many years in so many different ways, and we want to thrive, and we want to help other people thrive. That's who we are, because we know that it's possible. And we know that we're capable of it. You see, that's why we even enter into any kind of personal development, is because we know we're capable of more than what we happen to be expressing in the moment. And the reason we keep down the path is because more and more is revealed to us. More of who we are, more of what we're capable of giving and sharing and doing and creating comes with that path. So from that mindset, I thought, okay, how can we talk about different ways to thrive through this environment? And my first thought was that we have to have a target. We have to know where we want to go. And this is probably an unusual time, a unique time, where we actually get to sit for a moment and think about that instead of reacting to things that are going on around us. We actually have more time on our hands. Whether that's a good thing or not will yet to be seen. But it is an opportunity to reflect, where do I want to go? What does the other side of this look like? So what's my target? What do I want for myself, for the people I care about, for the people that I serve, for the industry that I'm committed to, or the work that I love? What do I want to see on the other side of this? And so the question is simply, where do you want to go? And now there's an interesting thing about identifying your target. And the thing about the target is, think about archery. In archery, to hit your target, there's a number of things you have to do well to hit your target. So I'm curious, what do you think those are? What do you have to do?
Aim.
Aim. Okay, very good. What else is important? And if you want to add something to the chat box, or please do. What else is important to hit your target? You have to take aim. What else?
It says focus. Focus.
Absolutely. What else?
Maria says move forward. Frank says buy a bow and arrow.
Actually, you're right. Actually, you're absolutely right, Frank. You need a bow and arrow. You need to take stock of, what are the tools you need to get there? Okay. What are your tools? What else?
Eva says excitement and motivation. And oh, Jenny says an arrow can only go forward by being pulled backwards and under pressure.
Oh,
David
I love that.
Tarantino says, Toronto, excuse me, he says take action.
And create tension.
Yeah.
You're right.
Tim says must have confidence of hitting the target. But you're all, if you, I don't know if you're all muted.
Yeah, I think these guys are brilliant. So, because I can read it, the chats as they're coming forward, but you're absolutely right. And part of it is your stance. You know, what's your stance?
Physiology, always first.
Yeah, but your stance is in terms of where do you stand on the issues that are most important to you? What's your stance in terms of what do you want to deliver to the world? What's your stance on what you want to create? So yes, you need your bow and arrow. Yes, you need to take aim. You need to focus. You need all of those things. Those are brilliant answers. So what's your stance? And that means, where are you right now? And is there something you need to change in your stance that's going to help you hit that target?
I saw an interesting post, and maybe this is a good time to ask it. You know, most of the people on this call were definitely considering this question about, you know, there's a lot of people now talking about what are you going to do, and like, you know, somebody wrote a concerto during a previous plague or something, and someone else is writing books or doing this and that, and now people are starting to say, you know what, maybe you don't have to accomplish anything, maybe just getting through it to the other side the best way you know how is more than enough. Stop shaming people because they're not, you know, creating, you know, a piece of artwork that's going to stand the test of time or something. What are your thoughts on that too?
I love that, but remember, this is about being true to you. Come home to you. What do you want? What are your values? If there's a target, maybe you just want to be more loving on the other side of that. Maybe you want to be more accepting, more kind, more compassionate, more open, more receptive, more tolerant. You see, that's a target as well.
Yep.
You don't, it's about, what do you want for yourself? What do you want for your family? And a lot of us really are too also focused on, what do we want for our business? What do we want for our clientele? So yeah, what is the target? So you get to choose it, and no one can tell you whether it's right or not. Only you can make that determination.
Right.
That's why you have to come home to you.
And I was going to say, with the arrow metaphor as well, you know, I think the other thing is on the other side of it, you need to practice and make it so that it's something, the muscle memory to make it replicatable and do it like over and over again, you know.
Yeah, I don't think William Tell was able to hit that apple the first time. Every time, you know, it's kind of like, and you know, for those of you who don't know that story, sorry about that. But it is about taking aim, and you're not gonna hit your target every time. But the more you practice, the more efficient you get at hitting your target. The first thing is you have to know what your target is, because I'll tell you that, you know, maybe in the first week or so, I think my target was like a scatter gun. I didn't know what the hell to pay attention to. I felt like, okay, do I fix this? Do I fix that? Do I call this person? Do I do this? Do I work on this project? You know, do I reach out to these clients? What do I do? I really felt like I didn't know where I wanted to go. So if you're in scattergun mode right now, this could be very helpful to you. Just pick a target.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you go toward that target for a while and you want to shift to another target, you get to. There is no right or wrong way to do this. Just pick a target, so it gives you something to focus your energy and your attention to. And so essentially, you know, you've picked a target, you've chosen your stance, you see where you're at, and now it's gonna, like, what's it gonna take to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be? And sometimes it's you just fire that arrow. It could be that simple. Sometimes it's a lot of practice. Sometimes you have to learn something that you didn't know. Sometimes you have to create different resources or different paths. And the reality is that the beautiful thing about human beings that, once we lock onto something, we're like heat-seeking missiles. Once your subconscious is clear about what you want, the, reticular activator and every other system in your body locks into it. And that's why imagery and imagination has always been so important, and why scientists such as, Einstein, and psychologists such as Maxwell Maltz talk about the power of the imagination, to see it, to see the target, and so that every part of you locks onto that target. So that's why we want to take step 1, choose your target. Now, step 2 is kind of interesting because step 2 is about tension. And tension is, okay, if you haven't felt tension over the last month, then you are superhuman, is all I can say. But there's tension, there's tension from being confined. There's tension from having new limitations imposed upon you. There's tension from changing your lifestyle, tension from changing how you work and who you work with and who you're able to connect with. There's tension of all kinds. So tension is another word for stress, which is another word for fear. So as we're creating tension, we're creating tension because we have uncertainty about a number of things that are going on around us. A number of things, like we have uncertainty because the things that we used to think we had control over, we don't have anymore. So things are kind of up for grabs. And in that, the base human need, as far as Maslow referred to it, is the need for food and shelter. Well, you've seen all the panic buying going on around at every major Costco in the world.
Toilet paper is one, apparently, too. Yeah. Maslow did not identify.
Yeah, but we choose what we need for that safety and security. Apparently, that's one of the essentials. So, but looking at that, we're saying, okay, where's your tension? And the reason that I'm asking this question is when you feel tension, sit with it for a moment and name it. Just don't call it stress, don't call it or just pressure or tension. Sit with it for a moment and ask, what is this really? Is it worry? Is it doubt? Is it uncertainty? Is it insecurity? Is it feeling threatened? What is it really? If you call it tension, the opportunity to resolve it is limited. And we make that mistake a lot, that we lump there are only in excess of 4,000 human emotions, and we lump about 1,000 of them into the word fear. Or maybe not 1,000, maybe a couple hundred. I can exaggerate every now and then. But if we call it fear, then all fear, it seems like it's the same. It's not. Worry, trepidation, a little bit of concern is different. So name it for what it is. And then, as I said, as I shared with you regarding Freedom Point, just ask it, why are you here? If you're here to serve me, why are you here? What are you trying to show me? And then once you, by the way, the beautiful thing about asking the question is once you know the answer, the communication has done its job. It came to communicate. It came to give you information. The challenge is that we spend so much time ignoring it and repressing it or denying it or trying to hide it that we don't listen to it. We don't receive the communication. And if we're just one giant radio receiver and we've got all this information coming to us from the universe, from intelligence probably beyond our own fathomable ability, then what is the communication for? That's where you get curious. So look at the tension and what's behind that tension, really. And by the way, when you find out what's behind it, you will know what it wants to propel you forward. If it's fear and it says it's time to call up your courage, then you know exactly what to do. Does that make sense? I really want to make this as straightforward as I possibly can. So if there are questions that come to you, please jot them down. The second part of tension, by the way, this is about what is the tension that's going on for the people that you serve? Where's the tension for your children, your spouse, your partner, your boss, your team, your employees, your customers, your clients? What's their tension? Because if you can get clear on their tension, you'll know exactly how to serve them. You'll know where to go in order to provide some kind of support or relief or strategy. And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for someone to lead them out of their fear. And so what is their tension? Are they worried about their business collapsing? Are they worried about their financial ability to sustain their family, their business, their employees? What are they worried about? What is their tension? And what is it in your skill set, in your repertoire, that allows you to reach out and serve them? So, knowing their tension is invaluable.
Yeah.
And so our next piece, we go into talent. And I've kind of already asked you that question. What's your talent? What's your resources?
Interestingly enough, can I just throw in something too that made me think, like, this might be an opportunity for someone who, like, my hallucination is maybe there's someone whose career, way of life, or what they've done for a long time is changed, right? For whatever reason. This might be an opportunity to say, what else can I do to produce value, also known as income, or also known as, you know, everything else that it brings too, you know? So there's other things, you know, that people could do. Like I was hearing the other day about someone who his regular job was not available to him, but he also knew that, you know, his neighbor needed a deck. So he's using this time now to, you know, work on this addition at his neighbor's house, being paid for it. So he's being resourceful and finding out, well, what else can I do right now? What else can I do with this time? And he's actually turning it into a project, and who knows, it could become a whole new career for him. You know? People can reinvent themselves in this time.
And usually, what is it, that expression, necessity is the mother of invention?
Absolutely.
And so many of us are in experimenting with or exploring, where do we fit in this necessity versus invention, necessity versus possibility. And so when we take an assessment of it's kind of like you like take an inventory, a talent inventory. What am I good at? What do I love to do? What are my skill sets? What skills, what things come to me so easily that are so complicated for other people? Honest to God, you know, I think that I will go to my grave as a technology dinosaur, regardless of how much I try to learn. I feel like, oh my God, there's just every little thing that should be so simple, so intuitive, and so easy is like an hour-long process for me. So do not come to me for tech help, please, okay? Now, from that standpoint, what is it that you love? What are you good at? What do you create? What gives you joy? But also, where are you able to serve? With this inventory, you could be looking at physical inventory that you have, things that you could sell. You could be looking at services you could provide. You could be looking at, you know, gifts that you have that are entertaining for other people that bring value. Honest to God, right now, the funny people in the world are gold mines. Because my husband tells me all the time, well, often I should say, that, you know, because I am always so focused on work and changing the world, that the first thing to go is my sense of humor. So you're not going to find me to be the funny one, posting wonderful, humorous jokes. But I love them and I need them. I have got to get out of my serious head often. So, if you're a humorist, share your humor. If you're an artist, share your art. If you're a musician, share your music. Whatever it is. If you love yoga, and there's so many beautiful resources online where people are sharing their gifts by making a video of how to do something. You know how amazing that is? And there's only a few billion people on the planet. There's room for everybody to share their gift. And there's a million, well, I don't know, a million, there's my exaggeration mode going in. There's a lot of platforms on which to do it. So look at those. Which are the platforms you enjoy most? Where do you like to hang out? Where do you find most of your information or your inspiration? How do you get involved in that so you get to share your gifts too? And many of you are already doing that. So the question is, how do you expand it? And how do you package your gift? That's one of the new questions. It's not now that you know what your talents and your skills are. How do you package them? And this is an art form in itself. And you may experiment with a number of different targets before you kind of hit on your niche, your package, your perfect offering to the public for now.
Right.
So that's one of the things we want to look at is our talent, our resources, our abilities, and how do we package it? And by the way, if you want to know how to package your brilliance, talk to your 4 best friends. They'll tell you what's most brilliant about you and what are the things that you bring to the table that is unique to you. And you start your package around that because it's authentic to you, not someone else. And hopefully that was all very clear to you. And then we finally go into our last T, which, although it isn't the most important, it has the most impact, and that is time. And one of the things that we can do with this new quarantine, this new time at home, this new time out or time in, however you want to call it, is that to understand that whatever we do with our time, we will have compounding results. If we spend our time, lounging around, maybe feeling sorry for ourselves, not taking care of ourselves, then the compounding effect of that on the other side of this quarantine is not going to be something that we like. It's not going to be something we want to look forward to. And so one of the things that we said in our first component was to pick your target. What is it that you want to become better at over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however long this opportunity exists? Because we don't really know. But where do you want to spend extra time? What do you want to focus on? Do you want to learn a language? Do you really want to fine-tune your musical craft? Where do you want to spend your time? And oddly enough, I was thinking about if there was a quality that I wanted to have more of on the other side of COVID-19, one of the things that I would like to have more of is self-discipline. I think I'm okay, maybe a little bit better than average, but I don't know what average is. But I know that if I had the discipline of an Olympic athlete, I would get different results. So I decided that, okay, what are the things that I can do to actually strengthen and develop that self-discipline? Because it's a habit. That's exactly what it is. What you become masterful at all depends on where you spend your time. It all depends on what you're willing to make a habit. And so you can make habits of things that don't serve you. I know I have plenty of them. Or you can make habits of things that absolutely serve you, that totally align with the essence of who you are, that totally express the greatness that you feel within you, and that strip away all the labels that anyone else has ever put on you. Because in truth, your time is your most precious commodity. And if the Thrive formula is that target plus tension plus talent times time equal Thrive. Time is the multiplier. Everything else is a plus, plus, plus. Time is your multiplier. It will amplify what you master. Where do you spend your time? What habits do you develop that are going to take you where you want to go? And when you put that formula together, and by the way, you can add other things to the formula. You can add whatever makes sense to you. But that was just the formula I came up with for you today. And I really did come up with it for you because I hadn't thought of it until the day before yesterday. So
I vouch for that.
it's amazing what can happen when you take your focus off yourself and you try to figure out how to help someone else. And by the way, if there's anything that's going to help us all get through this in the most optimal way, is to take the focus off of you. Put the focus on the people that matter. Put the focus on where you can serve, where you can make a difference. It will change your outlook, it will change your life, and it will change your results.
Yeah. Can we ask some folks if they have some questions? Maybe they filled this out, or they have some questions about specific areas of the thing, or just anything really.
Ask me anything, please. Ask me questions.
Who's got a question, right? You can either raise your hand or put it in the chat box, or oh, Leonora says she has a question.
Please.
Hi, it's Leonora Rhodes here. I have a question that was from much earlier on. And I loved what you were saying about the emotions being a signal to take notice. The examples that you gave were all kind of extreme emotions. They were intense emotions. What about the more kind of passive emotions like sadness or demotivated? That's kind of, I'm a coach as well, and that's what I'm seeing, seeing come on.
Do you know, it's really interesting, and thank you for asking that, because I had a conversation with a client just last week, and it was dealing with sadness. And it was dealing with sadness because her mom is in kind of severe stages of Alzheimer's. And so in the exploration of sadness, what we discovered for her, and which seems to also resonate with a number of other people that I've had conversations with, is sadness is the root of sadness is expectation. We have an expectation for something to be different than what it is. And so sadness is a signal that, and there are many other signals with it. It's to recognize the loss of something, to honor the importance of that, but also to recognize that we have an expectation for something to be different than what it actually is. And so it is an indication to step back, to honor what has been, but also to accept what is. Does that make sense to you?
Totally, yeah. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, that was great. Anybody else have some questions? This is a beautiful opportunity to ask some really high quality questions of such an amazingly gifted coach. So I just want to put it out there. Did anyone have an idea of, like, again, especially in this time of uncertainty, an idea of something that you wanted to, do or be or create or change or shift? If anyone start the process, but maybe get stuck at some point too. Curious. Oh,
Okay.
we had a question, the same question around anxiety. What is the gift or the message that you get from anxiety?
Okay, well, let's all kind of share in this because it.
Mi cuestión es de que cuando se haga todo esto, yo quisiera montar.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, honey, you could come back. So, at any rate, all of us have probably had some kind of anxiety over the last few weeks, you know, and anxiety, it definitely is related to fear, but anxiety is actually asking us to take a look at what's really going on and to look at where we have influence. Anxiety is saying, okay, these circumstances are not cool. This doesn't feel good. I'm not sure what to do. It feels it's sometimes a bit overwhelming. But anxiety is really intended to say, take stock, look around. What can you influence? Instead of looking at everything that's outside of your control, what is within your influence? And oftentimes that first thing that's, well, of course we all know this, the first thing within your influence is yourself.
Right.
And so anxiety, and the other thing about anxiety is typically it mounts as we stack things. The more we tend to focus on, you know, I'm worried about the kids, I'm worried about my job, I'm worried about finances, I'm worried about the employees, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about this. And before you know it, you're building up so much emotional stress that the anxiety is escalating. So part of it is, okay, step back and take it one thing at a time. The anxiety builds in overwhelm. And, you know, when uncertainty hits, one of the first things we do is we start looking for all the things that are not working, all the things that are under threat or under change. And so anxiety, the best way to respond to that is just dismantle it. Just say, okay, if I'm building this anxiety, let me list the 10 things that I'm concerned about. Okay? One at a time. And then approach each of those things. And then legitimately ask the question, what, if anything, can I do about this? And by the way, the if anything is always a good part of the question, because there are times when maybe we can't influence something, we can't have a direct impact. So what, if anything, can I do to influence this? And so, and by the way, as soon as you take one action, the anxiety starts to alleviate. Right. Anxiety is, hey, you need to take action. And the more anxiety you have, the more action you need to take. But when you get into overwhelm and everything seems to be caving in at once, you don't know what the hell to do. So anxiety is dismantle it. Yeah. One thread at a time. What, if anything, can I do to influence it? And do one thing. It's kind of, I have to share something funny with you. You know, I spent 30 years as a real estate broker, and, you know, I was always on the go. And there would be periods of time when I felt completely out of control. Like there were so many demands, so many expectations, so many things to do, so many people to be responsible to, so many things to take care of, that when I felt completely overwhelmed and out of control, ladies, you're gonna love this, I would go and clean my closet. I needed to do something that I knew I had control over. And I could actually celebrate the win and feel good about it. So find something that you can influence in a positive way. And you'd be surprised. It would bring me out of that overwhelm in a heartbeat. It would take a couple of hours to clean my closet, but it captured my attention. I focused on something other than what was bothering me. I felt like I was doing something productive. And at the end of the exercise, my closet was beautiful again. So find something. I know my husband oftentimes, when he feels overwhelmed about something, he goes and cleans his motorcycle. You know, find something, take control. You'd be surprised, because you know what's really beautiful? It starts a different chemistry in your body. Those endorphins and, start to flow. You start feeling good about doing something that you like or you want to accomplish. So, play with it.
I think another great way to take the teeth out of the anxiety monster is also say, like, what possible benefits might there be from this feeling too? Or like, for instance, in this time right now, well, I'm really nervous about, where the economy is going or whatever the question is, well, what benefit is? Well, I now have more time to do something else or to focus or change gears. And the other thing too, I'll mention, like Brene Brown, I love what she says about this too. It's always really, the feeling is basically it's the shitty first draft of your story that you're telling yourself. And if you had more time, you would edit your story differently. So if you're saying everything sucks and it's terrible and it's the end of the world, that's a shitty first draft. Let's go back and let's edit it for clarity. So what specifically, how specifically, what do you want to do with it? What possibilities are there? And so if we just take a little bit more time to rework the story, start to pull it apart and figure out what's going on there, you can edit it.
Yeah. Dave, you said it is about pulling it apart. Like I said, anxiety, when you lump everything into one big bucket, it gets scary. So you have to dismantle it. And then you look at, okay, what's true here? What can I influence and what can't I? And you start to take the intensity out of it by doing that. And yeah, it is a first draft. But the most beautiful thing you can do is actually accept your emotions and know that they are here to guide you, not to destroy you. I mean, and that's why I don't believe in negative emotions. I believe in guidance. Everything comes to serve. Every emotion comes with guidance. Just sit with it for a moment and, communicate with it, receive it, ask questions, because there's a part of you that knows the answer and it will surface.
Right. Deborah says that's a fresh perspective. Thank you. So I'm not sure which part specifically, but could have been any part of that. How about who else has a great question? Sorry.
I just want to say
I have a comment, if I might.
Yes, please.
So I love what you're saying about cleaning the closet, because we all get into that overwhelm. I was believe me, I was there yesterday, big way, and I had to basically pick one thing because there were so many things. I just had to pick one thing, and I spent all afternoon just on that one thing. I'm not done with it, but I'm going to spend some more time tonight.
For you.
My son is homeschooling right now, and he had a lot. He was falling behind, and I was trying to help him get caught up. And spontaneously, I didn't coach him on anything. He just decided to clean his desk. He reorganized his whole desk. So when you can get control, right, in one context, right, then you can begin to generalize that to other contexts.
Absolutely.
That muscle and building that that organization muscle, you're taking control back of one small corner. Like, in the hoarding shows, if anybody's ever seen those, they start with one corner, right, and then they work their way out. So they've got a whole room and then a second room, and eventually they've got everything cleared out of the house. And that's kind of like a metaphor, how you get back into control of.
Absolutely.
And I just found one other comment. I love what you're saying about, you, especially now, need to stand guard at the gate of your mind, because just like, we're all in kind of overwhelm mode or fear or anxiety mode because we're being bombarded with it on television or on social media or in your communities with friends, right? Now is the time. So many people on this call have been trained through Robbins or other coaching strategies or organizations, right? So we have the tools, and now is the time you need to remember to use those tools, right? We can all get lost and forget what you already knew, And these calls are a great way to remind ourselves, like, hey, wait, I know this already. I'm just not doing it, right?
Absolutely.
And when you're being bombarded by, you know, let's say politically motivated individuals who are trying to start arguments online or on television or whatever, or people who are on the extremes, conspiracy theorists, I've seen a lot on both sides of the equation. You need to, this is the best time in the world to become an independent thinker, think for yourself and say, okay, you know, they're trying to push this agenda, they're trying to push that agenda. What do I think, right?
Exactly. And I love you the way you said that, Frank, because it is about coming back to yourself. What is important to me? What do I think? And, you know, it kind of bringing this all back. We've all been sent home. It's time to come home.
Right.
It's time to come home. Come home to who you are and what's important to you. Once you know that, the decisions will be much more clear. When you're trying to meet everybody else's target, you're going to be in overwhelm. You're going to be confused. And so many of us have gotten lost along the way, trying to hit someone else's target. This is the time.
In a sense, right, we're being forced home, and we're being confined to a smaller subsector of overall global life, where we can actually exert more control about our health and fitness, about, you know, connecting with our families, about cleaning our closet or our rooms, or our, you know, planting our garden. I see, you know, Joseph was on earlier, and he's planting a garden in his backyard, and he's 20 minutes a day, but he's showing progress online. Or, you know, surrounding yourself with, you know, reading the positive books, like learning a new skill. These are the things you can control. Now is the time to do that.
And as long as you're doing things that interest you, that are part about, because if they interest you, they feed your soul. They feed the essence of who you are. And when you become more and more sure of who you are, your ability to navigate the world, it becomes apparent to you first and foremost. You know, it is about coming back and taking charge of your own life, but in ways that we have neglected for a while. We've tried to control so many things, but now it's coming back to taking charge of who we are and what's most important.
And I think when we do that, and when we do this in this context of whether it's 30 days, 90 days, whatever it ends up being, but we actually begin to take control of cleaning out that closet, you know, taking care of your health, becoming a better parent, a better spouse, a better whatever it might be, then on the other side of it, we'll be that much more productive and effective in the external world, right? Because we've been able to control, more tightly control what we can control, and taking advantage of that. So again, those skills, that discipline, that mindset is going to generalize to the external world when we get back to work. And I think with explosion of growth.
I couldn't have said it better, Frank. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So, any more questions? Any more comments?
Hey, this is Sandra. How are you doing today? Very great.
I'm
enjoying your presentation. It's been very impactful. It was so funny because yesterday we had a talk with my company. I work for Johnson & Johnson, and we had someone on with Limited Minds, Trevor, and he was talking about similar to what we were talking about today, but he made a quote, "You were made for this, you know, you're built for this." And then he also talked about how negative thinking derails us, right? And then how we should really focus on, and it kind of attributes to the Bible too, what we say it and what we think it, we become. So if you think negative and all you think about is negative thoughts, especially in this environment that we're in too, when you look at Corona and being isolated, but you can find positive things within the situation that you're in. Like for me, I'm used to being out, right? But now I get time to reflect. I get time to clean, to organize. I get time to still make a difference and impact on the people who because it's a blessing for me not to be out there because I'm in the world of cancer. And, you don't want to jeopardize someone's immune system by coming in. But at the same thing, you can, spread love, be kind to people. You can, do things to make an impact within the confinements of what we're doing, right?
I'm trying, Sandra, I love what you're saying. And I am trying to remember where I heard this from. Is that when you squeeze an orange, was it Wayne Dyer who told the story about squeezing the orange? That when you squeeze an orange, what comes out is orange juice. We're all being squeezed right now.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to what's coming out. Is
Exactly.
it kindness? Is it compassion? Is it focus? Or is it anger? Is it fear? What's coming out? Because in order to change what's coming out, it's time to change what we're letting in.
That's true.
And the interesting thing that kind of reminds me of another quote from Viktor Frankl. And he said that when you realize you cannot change the circumstance, it's time to change yourself. And this is the opportunity we're all being given. So Sandra, thank you for reminding us of that this is the opportunity to express more of who we are and maybe to change some of our focus so that we can give more of that kindness and compassion.
I think so. And then another key point they made, behavior, because a lot of times we focus on outcomes, but I like the way he shifted your thinking. Your behavior is what drives outcome, and not so much, sometimes like you always look at the end result, but in order to get there, you have to change and be able to evolve and to grow and to make those critical, learn the critical lessons that help us to become a better version of who we are and to walk that walk and to be that beacon of light for others. You know what I mean? But
Absolutely. And so you're right. And it's an interesting question. Which comes first? Thinking, emotion, behavior? What comes first? Is it a chicken or egg story? Because your behavior can also drive your emotion can drive your behavior. But it really, it's a matter of, if you make a change in one aspect of your being, everything else will change. If you change your thinking, everything else will follow. If you change your behavior, everything else will follow. If you change, it's a cybernetic loop. It's all connected. So enter where you're comfortable. Express and expand where you want to. And, it's an interesting thing. You said something that I'm curious about, to become a better version of ourselves. My concern about that comment, and I have used it on myself a million times, is that it tells me that I'm not being the best version of myself. And what I really am called to remind us in this conversation is about coming home to the perfection of who you are. There is no better version of you. You are perfect. You are light. You are the essence of good. That is what you're made of. Could we express it more? I don't mean to challenge you, hon. I'm only going to ask.
No. I was going to ask and throw another question, not to challenge, but I think when you say each day to become a better version of you, we go through different things, right? Trials, tribulations, learning, course correcting. So yes, you could be perfect, the perfect who you are, the essence of you. But I think every day there's lessons to be learned and to elevate you to a different, to the best of you per day. So I don't mean like I'm not the best of me. When I say that, I do it in a way of how I grow. Like today, I could be like, you could be the best version. It changes. Like if I'm sick, I could be the best version of that person. But if I'm at peak performance, it's a whole different level of me. So I don't mean that I'm inferior. It's just each day I try to be better, to grow, versus be stalemate into where I am. Because then you never evolve, you never grow, you never learn, you know what I mean?
And I do understand what you're saying. And it kind of goes back to Miguel Ruiz and the 4 agreements.
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite.
It so resonates. Yeah, exactly. So I do understand, you know, the point that you're making, and that the goal is to be our best, and whatever that best version happens to look like in the moment.
Exactly.
I get it. So I do understand. So forgive me for missing.
No. No
Okay,
worries.
so thank you, Sandra. So do we have any other questions, Dave, or is it time for us to adjourn?
Deborah said the fresh perspective that she was appreciating earlier was the lens of getting to know the message of the emotion. That's what she referred to, fresh perspective. And Malanka mentioned that she loves that all emotions are here to serve us. And she wanted to know if you could share about the course. Can we learn more about this?
You know what? Can I just ask if, you know, if you'd like to, I've just been the last couple months working on an online course for the Freedom Point Method, which is actually about creating transformation in every conversation. And it is about using the method that I've, you know, explored for the last 20 years in creating emotional behavioral change. And so I would love to share that with you. So if you would just reach out to me at deb@successmatrix.com, just email me, and I promise you that I will, you know, put you on the advance notice list for, you know, when that program is going to be available. It should be within the next, within 4 weeks that everything will be available. So please do.
Would you like me to put the free ebook you were going to share with them?
Yes. And you know, because you guys are amazing and you've shared your time so generously with me, we have had the opportunity to go through the Thrive formula, and I truly hope that you will find some value in that and find things that you want to take action on that are going to make a difference for you. I do have another gift for you, and it's an ebook called Stop That, Start This. It's really about how oftentimes the things that you want in life have more to do with what you need to stop doing than what you have to start doing. So it's a fun little read. It's easy. Share it with anybody you want to. Dave, you'll post the link for that?
Already done. I just put it in the chat.
Okay.
And we do have another question I see from Lenora, actually.
I am delighted to take your question.
Hello, me again. I have a question about tension, and you know, I know in the kind of, well, Tony Robbins calls it leverage. I think that's kind of a similar.
Actually, I don't actually mean it the same way.
Okay.
What I mean is the tension that you feel in your body is an emotional cocktail. You know, that everything you feel in the body, like everything has a chemistry to it. You know, whether it's peppered with adrenaline or cortisol or oxytocin or dopamine or whatever, that tension, as it builds in the body, there's a chemistry to it, and that chemistry is related to the emotion that we attach to that attention. So when I say tension, if you're having stress, let me give you an example, Lenora. A number of years ago, I was at a Robbins event. It was crazy hours of the morning. We were just finished. We were finishing up a life mastery day, and I'm crawling into bed, half dead at that moment, and you know, where you're kind of half asleep and half awake, and I'm feeling a lot of pain in my lower back. And I thought, as I'm laying there, I'm paying attention to this feeling in my body. And because I'm exploring all these things, feelings, emotions, beliefs, thoughts, etc., I'm laying there, as I say, in this trance-like state, and I ask the question, what are you? Why are you here? And I will tell you something very profound happened for me that night. The answer was, I am the feeling of being unsupported. as that answer came to me, tears just rolled down my cheeks. Actually, they rolled down inside my eyes because I was laying down. But the tears just flowed. And I said, and my logical mind said, but that's not true. You have all kinds of support around you. You have a family that supports you in doing these crazy Robbins events. You have a husband who is so tolerant of you going off halfway around the world to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. You have children who support you. You have friends, you have family, you have all of these things that support you. And that was my logical response. And the answer came was, you don't support you. You doubt yourself. That's where your lack of support is coming from. And then the next part of that conversation was, okay, what do I need to do? And the answer was believe. Believe in yourself.
That's great. Thank you.
You can see, you guys, why I am so attached to this realm of communication. I often express to people that the way I describe the privilege of doing this work is I feel like I'm eavesdropping on the wisdom of the universe. Because when you're in dialogue with another person's consciousness, super consciousness, the wisdom that comes forward will blow your mind, because it continues to blow mine. And I've been doing this for 20 years. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you. That was a beautiful answer. Thank you.
And just so you know, I put that link up there, and I think there was a minor typo in the first version of it. I've reposted it again. It's a colon, not a semicolon. They're very close, though. Tiny little tail. Just disregard that.
A little detail, I know, and technology is so unforgiving. At any rate, so do we have any more questions, Dave, or have we kind of gone the gamut?
I don't think so. I think it was mostly about the link. So any other questions? I mean, it's a beautiful opportunity to ask a great question of a master, a genius, one of my
Type better, Dave. Type better. Link still sucks. Doesn't work.
The link still doesn't work. Oh my gosh, we have to fix it. All right.
Ben says it worked. So, and it worked for me, both.
I just posted another version of it with the colon.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we need to make sure that everyone gets to have access to it. I can read it. Is that for the ebook that you guys are?
Yeah, I got it. Yes, it took me a minute, but I got it.
Okay, so are we good? Everybody's got a good link now? That's cool.
I think we got, if you didn't reach out to me, send me a note or something.
Or send me an email, like I said, deb@successmatrix.com. If you have any questions that you would like me to ask on a more personal level, I'm not sure how quickly I can get to them, but if you email me, I promise you I will respond.
I just put your email up for them too. I hope I typed that right, okay?
That looks good to me.
I get hired for my typing ability. Let me just say that.
That looks good to me. So I just want to thank you, Dave, for extending this opportunity to me, giving me the privilege to talk about something that I am totally passionate about, and I truly hope has been of service to all of you. So if there is anything that I can do for you in terms of helping you get access to information, please just reach out. I am at your service. Again, you can get me at deb@successmatrix.com.
Bernara is amazing content. She has a new perspective. Thank you all. I'm really glad you made the time. And Again, big shout out to Baltimore, Washington Power Team, 15 years, rock solid every single month, with the exception of December because of Day with Destiny, and all the U.S. Power Teams for getting together. We've got Connecticut, we got New York in the house, we got New Jersey's in the house, Long Island,
Florida.
Florida's in the house.
Long Island.
Long Island.
Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico.
All right.
Puerto Rico, too.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Colorado's in the house, and we are good. Okay, guys, it has been a pleasure. I look forward to the next time our paths cross. God bless you.
Les, thank you so much. Happy anniversary.
Yep.
you.
See everybody. Happy anniversary, Dave.
Congrats, Dave.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you, Dave.
Congratulations, Dave.
Good night,
Happy
everybody.
anniversary.
And Australia, too. That's
Thanks, guys. Australia, yay.
awesome.
Bye, guys. Thank you, Tony,
Night.
for letting us use your platform. Awesome.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you, Tony.
Take care.
Appreciate you, man.
Bye, guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Good night, everyone.
God bless.
Bye.
Yeah? I said no.